Accessibility Craft podcast, where we explore the art of creating accessible websites while trying out interesting craft beverages. This podcast is brought to you by the team at Equalize Digital, a WordPress accessibility company and the proud creators of the Accessibility Checker plugin. And now, on to the show.
Hey everybody, it's Amber, and I'm here today with Chris.
Hey everyone.
And Steve.
Hello everybody.
And this is episode 106. So if you want to find show notes and a full transcript, you can go to accessibilitycraft.com/106. Of course, we start every episode with a beverage. What are we drinking today, Chris?
We are trying out High Noon Spirits Vodka Seltzer Mango flavor, sometimes colloquially known as Nooners, apparently, short for High Noon. But I'm hearing that these are making waves as being a really good seltzer, and their claim is it's vodka, so not miscellaneous grain alcohol, but vodka and real fruit juice as the two basic ingredients.
It already wins for me. No high fructose corn syrup, no artificial flavors. This is my all-natural person loving the greenwashing on their can. But it's in blue font,
It just
not
has,
green.
just has cancer-causing alcohol.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I know. Why did that study have to come out?
I know.
Yes, for health reasons, we might have to make an alcoholic beverage be every third conversation episode instead of every other.
We're going to need to come back.
Well,
Although this is the only time I actually, so I think I drink about once a month at the cadence that we record these, and it is during this podcast episode.
Yeah.
So I think I'm okay. Well, so this can is a skinny tall can. I don't know if there's a name for these kinds of cans, but I feel like they're getting more trendy now.
Yeah. I just call them skinny cans. I don't know what else to call them because they're not minis, right? The minis are like the super tiny ones they have in Europe. It's like a skinny can.
Yeah.
Well, why do you think people are doing this now, making these tall
I
cans?
actually think I don't know all the details, but I've heard there's some kind of patent either with the like traditional Coke size can or with this one.
Oh.
There's something we'll have to dive into it. Like,
oh, really?
yeah.
There's like politics on everything.
Oh yeah.
Everything has like problems. Their label kind of looks like a sun, their logo, with all caps, high on one line and noon on the other. And I thought the back was sort of interesting. I always like to see the interesting thing that product companies put on there, but it says, looks like you've made it to the back of the can. Not a ton happens here. Most of the good stuff happens up top. But it gives us a chance to compliment you on your choice of hard seltzer. You picked a good one. A seltzer crafted with real vodka and real juice that's also a can-shaped reminder to always live like the sun is out. And since you've got a High Noon in hand, we'll wrap this up so you can start enjoying it.
All right. So we can try our mango nooners. Ours, it says best served cold. Is yours chilled, Steve?
Yeah, mine's chilled.
All right.
All right. Sometimes you show up and you're like, I forgot to put it in the refrigerator.
Wasn't that the pickle beer?
I think
that was like the worst one. Oh man. It smells good.
I'm like a foot away from the can and I instantly smelled mango the second I cracked it.
Yeah, you don't even have to hold this close to your nose to be able to smell it. I like the mango. Do you like the mango smell, Steve?
Yeah, it's good. Now, I will say that, I mean, I haven't heard it called a nooner. I like nooners, but I've always thought of them as something else.
Okay, this is a family-friendly podcast.
I don't know. Is it? But I will say, when I go to the beach, I see these things everywhere.
Do you?
Oh, like this brand even?
Yeah.
I'd never heard of this brand before.
Oh, yeah. They have this at most of the stores now. You know.
And all the Dayton, Ohio beaches?
Well, no, when I go to the beach. We do have beaches. We got the Great Lakes up at the top.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a cold beach.
Those are lake
especially
beaches.
Today, I bet you.
I think it's an ice beach today, but
So I will say I looked this up and it said it's a great summer beverage. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to drink it and pretend like it's summer.
Mm-hmm. It's really good. It's one of the better seltzers I've had. Not a lot of that
Mm.
weird alcohol undertone. Like, yeah, I don't get almost any
Yeah,
alcohol at all.
this is dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's 4.5%. So it's like about the equivalent of a mid-range beer in terms of
Mhm.
percentage.
And it's not too sweet.
Hmm.
I like this. It's almost got kind of a dry flavor
Hmm.
to it, but it's really good. I put this up there with that prickly pear
Mm.
spiked seltzer that we had when Ronnie was on that
Hmm.
episode. I thought that one was pretty good, and I would say this one is good as well.
Yeah. Well, I kept hearing about these. This is my first high noon, and I'm impressed, and I'm excited to try more flavors of this now. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
So
is really good.
thumbs up, 1, 2.
I'm a single thumbs up because I'm usually I don't gravitate towards seltzers all the time.
Oh,
But
I
it's good.
kind of like them sometimes. I would buy this again. Like if I was at the store
But
and I was,
it's not too
yeah.
bubbly though. Like I've had some that are so bubbly
Oh, they're like,
yeah, it's just way too much. It's very good. I could see, spring breakers getting really drunk real quick off of these things.
so the next time we go to the beach, this is what we should take.
Mhm.
That's right. It like Chris said, I can't taste any alcohol
Honestly,
at
though,
all.
like I'm going to a board game night with friends tomorrow night. I might pick up a 4-pack of these and bring them down with me because these are pretty good.
Yeah.
That would be a switch. You guys usually drink whiskey when you do board game night.
Yeah, yeah. Usually it is.
Are the guys gonna be like, why are you showing up with chick beverages?
And I'll be like, just try one. Trust me.
Yeah. Like I'll drink this, you drink the whiskey, enjoy your drive home. Like
No,
Yeah.
he marks himself on our family calendar and in a way that it's such that I shouldn't expect that he might not just sleep on his friend Carl's couch.
There you go. That's a good night.
It has happened once or twice. If I have
Yeah.
more than like 1.5 drinks, I'll just be like, I think I'm gonna stay here.
All right. So I was doing some exploring for this podcast, and I usually will sometimes go look and see if anything new has popped up with certain keywords. And I came across a user accessibility feedback survey that a nonprofit in the UK called Big Brother Watch, which I've never heard of before. It's all about helping you keep track of Big Brother watching you, put out on their website. And I thought it would be sort of interesting to talk about. So, the topic for today's episode is when should you ask for user feedback? I want to talk a little bit about this survey and whether we think that they're asking for user feedback on accessibility in the right way, in the right timing, all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
Awesome.
So I was taking a look at this. Would it be good for us to maybe start by just describing the survey and reading off the questions?
Yeah, I think that's good. Do you want to do
I
that?
volunteer as tribute if we want to. All right. So the I'm not actually sure. Is it an H1 on the page? Okay. Well, they've got that going for them. The H1 on the page is help us improve our website. And they say Big Brother Watch wants to hear from you to give us or to give users a meaningful, easy website experience. If you require accessibility accommodations, your response to this survey will be invaluable. Web accessibility features aid users who experience poor vision, mobility challenges, cognitive loss, and or other disabilities. We look forward to your response to this survey. High level, I think that's an okay intro. They go on to ask, these aren't numbered, so I'm going to have to count here. It's like 6 open-ended questions with text fields for responses. So the first is, how easy or difficult is it to read text on our website? Then, how easy or difficult is it to click on buttons on our website? How easy or difficult is it to access information about our campaigns on our website? Do you use assistive technologies to access information on our website? And then they have 2 more. What kind of accessibility or disability accommodations would you like to see on the Big Brother Watch website? And finally, do you have any other thoughts or comments about our website? And then just a submit button.
And what is worth noting about this is all of them except for that final question are required.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I haven't submitted the form, but they have a little asterisk. So my assumption is they're required.
Yeah, they
to
are.
submit the
I
form.
submitted it. They are. Yeah.
Oh, okay. They are actually required.
Yep.
programmatically. Yeah. So I think, first of all, we probably want to applaud everyone for asking for accessibility feedback. And I think this is great. And I'm not intending this podcast episode to be like, let's pick on a random nonprofit organization that we've never heard of before. Right. But I do think like there's some interesting conversation to be had that anyone who manages a website and is thinking about, I want to gather this feedback, could maybe have some takeaways. And so that's my hope with this episode. And so I wonder if we want to start with, do we think the questions that they're asking and the format of their survey, do we think these are good questions to ask people?
Yeah, they may be good questions, but they may not be the best questions.
Why do you
Um,
say that?
uh, because I don't think that they necessarily get to the heart of some of the issues. That like, there's really no mention of like, do you use a keyboard to navigate this website? I mean, they under the assistive technology question that Chris read, there actually is a subsection there about what is an assistive technology, and they don't even list the keyboard on there, and and which is
Yeah.
probably one of the most utilized assistive technologies, right?
Yeah, it says assistive technology includes using a screen magnifier or zoom functions, screen reader, voice recognition software, or switch devices. So, I
Mhm.
mean, they are open to, we might have users that use more than just a screen reader. So I think that's kind of cool. But
Well, there's another thing I observed is the second question is how easy or difficult is it to click on buttons on our website, which if I mean, I'm not here to argue semantics, but that implies the use of a mouse versus having a broader question of
Yeah, access.
how easy or difficult is it for you to interact with our
Yeah.
website or our
mhm.
user experience, right?
I think it's interesting, and I wish I had a good resource on this right now, which I can't think of one, but I remember in college, I took like a statistics class and then a couple of my like psychology classes. We talked a lot about doing like surveys or actual research with people. And it's like arguing semantics, but semantics actually really, really matter. And so, for example, on that, do you use assistive technologies to access information on our website? That is a yes or no question.
Right.
So somebody could just write yes.
Hmm.
But what you haven't said is what assistive technologies are
Yeah.
you using to access information on our website? Which would actually be much more helpful for the person who's looking at the data. And so I do actually think like thinking about wording of questions when you want to survey your users is really
Yeah.
important.
Well, I mean, like when you talk about the format too, it's like this format. How are they going to quantify the responses from this, right? Like, are you going to read through each one, and then somebody else is going to like quantify
Try to summarize
priority
it.
at a priority level? Like, I'm thinking programmatically. How do you quantify the priority of what the feedback that you're giving if it's all these open ended text area
Yeah,
fields,
Because
right?
it's
this
it's
is a
all
qualitative survey. It's not a quantitative survey.
Yeah,
So you'd like to see, Steve, if we were doing something like this, you'd want to see at least one or two multiple choice or
stars or
yeah, like some sort of where you
rate
have to
it from
pick
1 to
from a
10.
list.
Yeah, or yeah, totally.
Yeah, or drop
Yeah.
downs or whatever. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting to me, and what I would probably advise if I were in a position to like review this survey before it goes out to the public, is I think that a lot of these, maybe not all of them, but a lot of these are useful qualitative questions to ask. But one thing that I really like that we do on our surveys some of the time, and just other web forms in general, is you will start with a quantifiable input. So like, dislike, rate
Mhm.
on a scale, right? And then depending on what the user puts in, a qualitative question that is optional appears based on the user's input. So if a user puts, yes, the text on your website is difficult to read, let's say that was a yes no question. Then if they say yes, there's a question that pops up that's optional that says, could you provide us with more information if you're willing? Like what pages, what text, right? Maybe even a screenshot upload, right? If they're able to do screenshots. I think all of that would be a good pivot, is to have a mixture of the different types of data.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was my initial, like, first gut when I saw this is I was like, all these questions are required. And I know it doesn't seem like a lot. What did you say? I already forgot what number you said. But I don't know, like, it does kind of seem like a lot, right? They
Well,
might get more
I mean, they're gonna
they
bounce. I mean, it's a
weren't
little
all
bit of
required.
yeah, it's a cognitive overload a little bit. Like,
Well,
I
and they
mean,
all have text areas. So I
right,
think that contributes to it a little bit, which makes sense. If you want someone to be able to give you a paragraph, right? It should be a text area, but I can't just see at a glance, this is what
yeah,
I'm gonna be asked. And it's like, oh, they have kind of large text areas too, like they're relatively tall. And so it almost gives you the impression I'm supposed to write a lot. Ooh, this seems like a lot of work. I think I'm gonna go away.
okay,
Whereas being able to pick things, right, from a
right,
drop down or choose a rating of 1 to 5, like, or say yes, no. Okay, I look at that and I'm like, I can do that real fast. And I can get through 12 questions like that real fast,
right.
right?
I mean, the text field's probably fine, like Chris said, but you got to qualify showing it to him first, and maybe don't even make it required even then.
Mhm. Yeah. So there is something else that is interesting about this website that colors my reaction to the survey. But before we dive into that, we are going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back and we're going to talk about what that is.
This episode of Accessibility Craft is sponsored by Equalize Digital Accessibility Checker, the WordPress plugin that helps you find accessibility problems before you hit publish. Thousands of businesses, nonprofits, universities, and government agencies around the world trust Accessibility Checker to help their teams find, fix, and prevent accessibility problems on an ongoing basis. New to accessibility? Equalize Digital Accessibility Checker is here to teach you every step of the way. Whether you're a content creator or a developer, our detailed documentation guides you through fixing accessibility issues. Never lose track of accessibility again with real-time scans each time you save, powerful reports inside the WordPress dashboard, and a front-end view to help you track down hard-to-find issues. Scan unlimited posts and pages with Accessibility Checker free. Upgrade to Accessibility Checker Pro to scan your website in bulk, whether it has 10 pages or 10,000. Download Accessibility Checker today at equalizedigital.com/accessibility-checker. Use coupon code AccessibilityCraft to save 10% on any plan.
All right. So, who wants to share I don't know, what do we call it? The hook here about this survey.
Well, I was just out of idle curiosity during the commercial break trying out some keyboard actions on that website, and let's just say it left a lot to be desired. Like their menu didn't expand for me at all as I was tabbing through. Nothing highlighted. So
Is-
I have a guess. I have an inkling of what you're going to say.
Of a guess.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. So of course, me being me. It's so hard once you've learned about accessibility to not, like, see it or wanna check it and, like, I don't know, that's just, like, the QA person inside of me. Some of it I just saw instantly, which is, oh, they have orange buttons with white text, which as much as we love Chris's NASA t-shirt that he's wearing right now, we all know that that fails color contrast. So I don't even have to use a checker, just be like, "Oh, you have a contrast failure right there in your header on your donate button," or some of your text, maybe in some other spots down lower on the page, there's a light blue. So I could see that without doing anything. But I'm always curious, and so I also tabbed through that website. I ran it through our AC offsite,
yeah,
and I ran it through Wave, and it is definitely not an accessible website.
right.
Like, the navigation menu doesn't even function. There's empty links. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So for a little bit of context for listeners, the website has a hamburger menu that is that's visible all the time. It doesn't ever go to a normal navigation menu, and the hamburger toggle is a div. It's not a button, so it never gets
It has,
focused.
like, a JavaScript on-click handler or something, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it never gets focused by the keyboard. Now, it does like if you keep tabbing, you will go through the links, but like you have no idea where you're at. Like if you
because
if
they don't become visible.
right, they don't become visible. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
so my question, Amber, is how did you find this survey? Like at like
Oh yeah, that's sort of so when I'm looking for podcast topics, I frequently will just go to Google and type web accessibility, and then I'll switch to the news
Oh,
filter, and then I filter it by like past month. And sometimes that comes from news sites, but depending on the kind of site, Google might sometimes rank them in news, and so it'll pull up other things that were randomly published. So this is survey is in a blog post on this organization's website, and it was published on January 16th. So it came up as like new content related to web accessibility in the news section of Google search. And
so
I was like, oh,
so you
yeah,
accessed this direct page from Google, not from the website.
correct. Yes.
Yeah. So my question is, they're trying to get people that require assistive technologies to fill out this survey. How do they get to the survey?
Yeah. I mean, we don't know. It's possible they have an email list and they
Oh,
emailed it out because it's on their blog too. So maybe they think people who read our blog.
how do they get to
I'm
the blog?
assuming that if you make a survey like this, you're emailing it out to people in your email list. Maybe they have donors or subscribers. They have a subscribe call to action in the header also. But I'm going back to question number 2. How easy or difficult is it to click buttons on our website? And when I'm thinking about this survey, like my instant reaction is, why do you need users to tell you that?
Yeah, but what if it's not a button and it should be?
yeah. Well, my guess, and I have no factual information to back this up, but my guess is this survey was put together by, let's be real, probably a very well-meaning person
Oh, yeah.
to
Mhm.
try to get some sort of grasp on things about their website that they would need to improve, but not but that person that wrote the survey probably has no direct experience with using alternative means of navigating the web and interacting with it. Like they've probably never used a screen reader, they probably never used a keyboard, and so they're
Right.
not they
I
don't
you know,
understand.
I totally
And
get that. I have a hard time though because I'm a little bit like if you've read anything about accessibility, you it's very hard not to stumble upon Wave. Or any I mean Accessibility runs ads for their accessibility scanning tool, which will alert you to things like empty links and buttons. Not like you should use that tool. I'm not saying that, but I'm just like,
Mhm.
so I am a little like this is kind of where I was hoping to go a little bit because when I look at the problems that are so obvious on their website that you don't have to be an expert to use one of these testing tools and find, like our accessibility checker plugin, the Wave browser extension would find these problems, and this is a WordPress website. I feel like they're trying to survey users too soon.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, why do you need a user to tell you that the button in your navigation menu doesn't work? Why haven't you tried to figure that out yourself?
Well, even beyond that, the users that are most likely to actually have the capability of completing this survey, if they're going to discover it through the website and not from basically getting a direct email or text with a link, they're going to have skewed data because the people who are going to be able to reach this survey probably have less of a need to use assistive technology demonstrably than others might. Um,
Well, I do think the actual survey itself is accessible.
Yeah.
yes,
They're
but I'm
using
saying
Ninja
to access
Forms.
the navigation menu to get to the news feed to find the survey.
Yeah,
If you're
assuming they're coming in that way. But my assumption is that's not like if I made a survey, like we made a survey for our users, we emailed it multiple times to people and we're like, please take this. So that's
sure.
my assumption. I don't think they're making it and just hoping random people will stumble upon it.
Hmm.
I could be
Yeah.
wrong. Maybe they are.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, addressing the obvious critical issues first is probably best. I mean, there's definitely some low hanging accessibility fruit here that can be fixed quite easily.
Yeah, there's sort of an interesting article on the Nielsen Norman Group, which we've talked about before. They're really well known company that specializes in usability and UX. And they have an article from like 2023 about user feedback requests 5 guidelines. And one of the things that they talk about in there is timing. Like, when do you ask for feedback can be critical to when you actually get it and whether people
Yeah.
will want to engage with it. And for me, I sort of feel like it's, if you haven't done at least some accessibility work on your website to the best of your abilities, then it's sort of disrespectful and a waste of a disabled user's time to ask them to give you feedback.
Right. Well, there's too, like if that survey is coming from a link from some email communication or something, so it's a direct link to the survey, and how are they uh, ensuring that these users have actually used the website? I mean, there could be ways to present a survey to somebody after so many interactions, right?
Mm.
That
Yeah, or even like this would be an interesting kind of survey. You know how you can do things on exit intent?
yeah.
I wonder if you get a bounce, like somebody comes and they're only there for a few minutes or seconds and then they try to leave. Maybe that would be an ideal time to survey and be like, start with one question. Is our website working for you? Yes or no? And if they say no, then you could pop them over to be like, can you give us more information about that?
Mm.
Right? To try and figure out why are they just leaving? And then maybe you get a better response rate.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Or like, I know in Hotjar you can see what they call rage clicks, where like people are like clicking a bunch on something they think should work or do something and it's not. Like, maybe you could use rage clicks as a trigger for, okay, there might be a problem on our website. We need to show them a survey. But yeah.
I do think that there is this propensity at times to, because it gives the feeling of doing the good work, to just ask for information or ask for feedback, right? But I think it's kind of a weird situation when you're like, or I think there, what I was trying to communicate, sorry, is that I think that there's this propensity to ask users with disabilities to do their own testing and validation and to tell you if you're doing a good job versus
Mm-hmm.
using scanning tools or hiring a professional to help you, or in the instance of a nonprofit, maybe finding a volunteer, right, to help with that, who's willing to give their time. But just kind of trying to outsource your accessibility audit to your users, I think is kind of,
Yeah.
it's not good. And again, I'm not here to crap on this organization. Like I'm guessing they probably mean well, but they're doing a lot of the things that in my pattern recognition I see organizations that don't really get accessibility do. And
Yeah. Yeah, I would say too, like I don't know how this organization is set up, but it may be like somebody in their organization is trying to be an accessibility advocate, right? And they're trying to maybe create some kind of data or proof that accessibility should be prioritized within their shareholders or their board or whatever, right? That may be
Mm,
the intent of this form.
that's a good thought. I didn't really think about that. Like, maybe they want to do more and they want to hire a developer to fix their navigation menu. And someone else is like, we don't have budget for that. And so they're trying to prove that it's necessary.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really interesting thought that might justify having this survey earlier
mhm.
in the
The
process.
other to flip that on its head, I've served on boards in public sector, and one thing that boards will sometimes do is direct the director of the nonprofit entity or the charter school or whatever it is to put out surveys about certain information that the board is curious about. So this also could have been a board directive, uh,
Hmm.
and a somewhat ill-placed one in the ideal order of operations. But the
Yeah.
point is we don't know, but I think the deeper point that we're all trying to make here is that if you're going to ask for feedback, do a little bit of the basics first. Otherwise, you're kind of in a kind of in a weird situation. I'm trying to think of like a real world non-digital comparison of what that would be. I don't know.
Yeah, door to
Yeah,
door,
like,
like a
well,
door to
no,
door
yeah,
salesman.
having a
Like,
restaurant that
yeah.
only has stairs,
Oh, yeah.
and then you're surveying users and you're like, how easy is it for you to get in, or users, customers, how easy is it for you to get into our restaurant?
And they're outside. They're like, I'm not even in your restaurant. I can't get in.
They're like, have you looked at your door?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I felt about how easy is it to click buttons on our
Yeah.
website.
Well, they're not buttons. Like,
Yeah. So I think this is a good closing point. Maybe we could each say, what do we think our top recommendations are for organizations that want to survey their users on the accessibility of their website? Do we have any ideas about either? I think, and we can each approach it whatever way makes sense to us, either the questions we would include, things we would do first, how we would send out the survey, like how would we advise organizations to gather information? Who wants to go
I'll
first?
I'll go first. I think providing more context around why you're doing the survey. I think we've gone in deep enough on like how to make this survey more effective as a tool and what types of questions to ask, qualitative versus quantitative. But I think more transparency around why this survey is being put out beyond the two sentences that are at the top. Like, was it an internal staff member? Was it a board member? What are the organizational concerns they're trying to address? Is it legal or some sort of compliance thing, right? Like, and I think that that can help the type of response and the reaction that you get if you just give people more information about why you're asking them these questions beyond just a generic, we want to make sure our site works well for you. There has to be a deeper reason, I'm guessing, beyond that, especially if you're in the nonprofit sector.
Well, we ran a survey recently for our roadmap planning, and we even gave a very specific date also. And like we said, Amber, Chris, and Steve are going to meet on this day in January. I can't remember what it was.
yeah.
We'll pretend it was January 9th. January 9th. And we would like you to submit responses before then because we will be discussing them in this meeting and using them to do XYZ. Right?
Yeah.
Versus sort of an open-ended, like you're saying, Chris, we want to make it better blog post. And then maybe it doesn't feel like you're asking for feedback that'll just go into a black hole.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your best advice, Steve?
I think my best advice would be first, let's fix the obvious things with the website. Like you said, it's a little disingenuous to ask these things when you haven't taken any measures yourself to try to fix accessibility issues that can be exposed with literally the click of a button, like with the Wave extension. I mean, this is a WordPress website. You could install the accessibility checker as well.
Free one.
Yeah, the free accessibility checker. Yeah. As far as the survey, yeah, I would kind of just reiterate that, make it easy for them to respond. Don't put all the onus on the data on the user. Do some of that work yourself and then present it to them in an easy way for them to click either, radio buttons or check boxes or star ratings, just to make it much easier for them to give that information and much more likely that they will complete that form and give the information. I'd probably think about the questions you're asking a little bit better, be a little bit more direct. Maybe, there is some logic to the questions. If a question is answered this way, then you present something else to go a little bit deeper. I would probably provide an alternative format to the online portion, especially if your website's not accessible.
That's a
What do
great
you
point.
mean by that? Like a
Like,
paper survey?
well, I mean, maybe, maybe a PDF, maybe some other service that is accessible.
Oh, like not hosting it on your website if you know your website has accessibility problems. Go do it on.
Mhm.
I'm going to pretend SurveyMonkey is accessible. It could be. I don't know. I've
Yeah,
never
yeah,
looked.
yeah.
Like that. That's what you
Something,
mean.
and I'd probably be a little open with it. Like, I definitely would do something that is programmatically quantitative to where like the results can be presented. Maybe even transparency too. Like, if you fill out the survey to learn about how our users feel about accessibility. And when they fill it out, then you actually present some data at the end of that survey. It just says like, thank you, your entry has been submitted with no feedback, nothing like, we plan to collect this data and speak about it with our internal board, and then we're going to provide our findings here, and then we're email our list with what our plan is next to address these accessibility issues. So like right now, it's like all the work's on me, and I get nothing for it.
Yeah. So I agree with both of you. I would make it shorter. I would not ask obvious questions like, do our buttons work or not? But the one thing that you guys haven't mentioned that I do think has been really helpful for us every time we've done surveys is we always put an optional email address field. And it'll literally, the label will be optional email address. Like I'll write the word optional. And then we'll have a description for the field, which says, if you would like us to follow up with you about your response, enter your email address here. And 50% or more of people will provide their email address. And that can be really helpful because, I mean, we've done surveys where they've said, it would be great if this existed. And I was like, oh, it does. They just don't know. So I like emailed them and I'm like, hey, here's how you do XYZ. And they're like, oh, wow, that's so good. I didn't know. Right. Or I've also reached out to people because they've written something that I didn't really understand and I wanted to understand better. And so I would be able to then get more information. So that would be my best advice to wrap up on top of what you all said is anonymous surveys are fabulous, but some people will want to provide their information, and giving them a way to do that or inviting them to do that. Obviously they can put whatever they want in an open-ended text field, but providing a thing that says, we will follow up if you give us your email address, or we may, if you don't want to guarantee you will, if you think your volume will be too high, I think could be really helpful. So I would say overall, I think they have a good intent, but if I was consulting with them, I would advise them to do some work first before they probably already sent this out to their email list, but yeah. So.
Cool.
Well, hopefully this has been a good conversation about surveying users. I don't think we've ever talked about that before.
No.
And we've got a nice mango seltzer to go with it for our Friday afternoon.
That's right. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Great talking. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Cheers. Thanks for listening to Accessibility Craft. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe in your podcast app to get notified when future episodes release. You can find Accessibility Craft on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. And if building accessibility awareness is important to you, please consider rating Accessibility Craft 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Accessibility Craft is produced by Equalize Digital and hosted by Amber Hines, Chris Hines, and Steve Jones. Steve Jones composed our theme music. Learn how we help make thousands of WordPress websites more accessible at equalizedigital.com.